Okay, we're on Nun Vav on base. We are somewhat past the Mishnah. Ravo b'shem Rabbi Yochanan. Nun Vav base, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines down. Past the Mishnah. No, all the way past the Mishnah. You're in the Mishnah. In the Gemara. Okay, Ravo b'shem Rabbi Yochanan. Oh, actually, we're not up exactly up there yet. We're a little bit behind before that. Asa Rabbi Avo. There's a. You see that? Asa Rabbi Avo. No, also not there. Okay, I'm getting mixed up. Ve'elin HaChadosh is where the little asterisk is at the beginning of the line. Ve'elin HaChadosh is where there's Yud and then a little asterisk. Okay, Elin HaChadosh. What are the what's considered to be new wheat? In which case, the bran around the kernel is still considered to be part and parcel of the kernel itself, and to have the kedusha of truma. Tani Eloheinu Kadoshos Kozman Shabrios Regilin Lachvot. It's an interesting thing. By very fresh grain, they don't thresh the grain with oxen, because if it's moist, the oxen are going to crush the grain. Boy, we really hit the jackpot tonight. By fresh grain, by very fresh grain, they don't use the oxen. All they use is sticks to thresh. In other words, to separate the chaff from the kernels, because otherwise they would crush it. So as long as that's the case, as long as the chaff around it is not completely hardened yet, as long as the kernel itself is not hard, and you can't yet thresh with oxen, you must beat it with sticks. So that means also that the chaff around the kernel, or the bran immediately around the kernel, is also not yet so hard yet. And since it's also not yet so hard, so therefore it's still considered to be part and parcel of the kernel. If it's still part and parcel of the kernel, it has the kedusha of truma. Okay? As long as it has to reach a stage where it's tougher, it's still part and parcel of the kernel. Rabbi Yachamar ad shloshim yom, for the time it's suitable for harvest, for 30 days. Rav Obashem Yochanan said, Keni shiur. Now this is getting back to the Mishnah. In the Mishnah it said that when you sift, you're not allowed to throw away, even when you sift truma, you are allowed to sift it. You're even allowed to sift it twice, I think we said. Be that as it may, it said there's a specific shiur, which is the maximum amount of sifting, which is that you can either cause 1/6 of the flour or 1/3 of the flour to drop away, and that's okay. That's not considered to be losing truma. Now, the question is, can you say this? When you want to sift the grain, in order to get large clumps of grain, in order to make coarser flour, you're allowed to do it as much as you want. Similarly, allowed to cut off the leaves from the vegetables as much as you want. So why in our Mishnah does it say that there are limits? Rabbi Yochanan said, when you're cutting the vegetable, imagine you're cutting broccoli. So you can cut off as many leaves as you want, as long as you leave the tmora, which in this case is like the palm tree, the stalk. You can break off. When you go to the store, sometimes it says that you can't break the florets off the broccoli, but here you're allowed to. You can break the florets off and leave the broccoli stalk, and that is what you take, and that's what he uses truma. So how come our mission says that they're distinct amounts, which you must retain as a minimum? It seems these prices that you can take off as much as you want and make it waste material, whether it be in flour or whether it be in vegetable leaves. So it says where Rabbi Yerushalmi said, Kambishnei Ravon, Kambishnei Sova. It depends what years we're talking about. So years of famine, you have to be more parsimonious, or you have to save more. You can't throw away as much. If to yourself satiation, there's plenty of food in the world, then you can even throw away more. Okay? Says more further. Talmud, we learned over there. Meye avatiach, watermelon seeds. Uknivas yerek shel truma. And the pieces of truma, which you cut off the vegetables, because the leaves that you cut off, which you're not going to use. What's their status? Rabbi Yosef Madoisa Matil Azorim. He says the Zor can eat them. Why? Because they're not truma. Why not truma? Because they're made to throw away. The watermelon seeds and also the leaves of the lettuce, which you throw away.
The watermelon seeds you can plant.
Doesn't matter. No, that's midrabanan. If you do plant them, they become truma over again. But that's all. You're not allowed to plant them. You're not supposed to plant them. You're supposed to either eat them or toss them. You're not supposed to plant them. Be that as it may, the bottom line here is that we see that it's a relative thing. If you decide to keep the watermelon seeds, they become truma. Decide to throw them out, they're not truma. Chachamim disagree. They hold it's also in any event. In other words, it's always considered to be truma. Since they are edible, it's not a subjective thing or it's an objective thing. Name Rabbi Yochanan lo shana b'knivas yemek shebalabatim. This is only talking about where the balabatim snip off. Do you have shel balabatim? What do you have? B'knivas yerek shel? That's what you have?
Then it says Abo Penikas Yerushalmi.
Oh, so he just reversed it. I don't know why he reversed it. It says Lo Shonel B'Knivas Yerushalmi Batim. He says, but when the Batim snip off leaves, so those leaves might still be considered to be truma, and then that would be a machlokus or b'doisim chachamim. Because Batim snip off leaves which are almost perfectly edible. They're just a little bit wilted or misshapen or whatever. However, B'Knivas Yerushalmi Gandonim. But when you have the gardeners themselves snipping off leaves, afilu Rabbana Modu, they only snip off the worst, most disgusting, reprehensible leaves, which are going to diminish the sale. So therefore, when if the gardeners snip that off, that for sure is not truma, because that is certainly a very, very rejected part of the tree, the part of the plant. Rabbi Boon, as stated. You qualify this. This is only true about when you're dealing with leaves which are part of a plant, when they're part of part of truma gedola, part of the truma which the Yisrael gives the coin, because there's no shiur for that. So therefore, we can say retroactively that these leaves are not truma because there was no shiur to begin with. So we'll say that these leaves, which are excluded for whatever reason, they didn't become part and parcel of truma. But the Trumas Meiser is a precise shiur of a tenth, right? So either these are part of the tenth or they're not part of the tenth, right? You can't say after the fact that they'll be not part of the tenth. Neither they were, they weren't. By Truma G'dola, which doesn't have a set measure, it's all by estimate. So then you could say, well, retroactively, we see this wasn't part of it. Could be it's a Breira issue, but Lamaisa, we could say retroactively it wasn't part of it. But here, in a case where we're talking about Trumas Meiser, Ein Alin, Klushin Alin, aren't the leaves that you plucked off also part of the tenth, which corresponds to the other leaves left behind? And aren't the cut off stalks also truma, that which you left behind? So therefore, it's also Lazorim. So it created a sharp distinction between truma, where the cut off stuff is considered perhaps to be not truma, because anyway truma is no set amount, and the case of trumas meiser, where since the measure the ratios must be precise, therefore if you don't meet the criteria of the ratio, you're in big trouble. So therefore you have to say that mistome, everything which was separated as trumas meiser, even the leaves which you cut off in the process, all part and parcel of trumas meiser, and they have the kedusha and are forbidden for non-kohanim. Okay, let's go back to the Mishnah. Hama'arakad, 4 lines before the end of the Mishnah. Let's try the earth's perfect water. Hama'arakad mikad lekad v'notev shlosha tifim. Somebody pours from one pitcher to another pitcher. In other words, if I was pouring from here to here, I'm not going to do it. If I was pouring from here to here, at the end when I'm finished, the notev shlosha tzipin. If they're after I pour out the last 3 drops, you know what? It's a drop. Okay, I have a little bit of water in here, right? And I let it drop from here. This is my truma water, right? Well, it's really oil or wine because there's no truma water, but you get the idea. Okay, now I wait 1, 2, 2, 3. I got 3 drops. Now there's still water left in here, but that doesn't matter. I can be mevatel this water. It says the Mishnah. At this point, I can put chulin in there. There's a little bit of truma trying to be mevatel. Big deal. That we're willing to let be water under the bridge. However, here kino mita. What happens if now after I pour out the 3 drops, I put this on its side, and I get a sizable, not a film, like a puddle, whatever it's called, a bubble of wine or oil in there. So I raise a truma. That's truma. But I can't just say, well, since I could just pour chulin into it, so whatever gathers in a bubble on the side is now chulin as well. No, whatever gathers is truma. No shiur. The kamate betrumas meiser shuld mai. How much is there in trumas meiser shuld mai? Yourself take it to a kohen. Echad b'shmoyde b'shminis. Now this trumas meiser of mai, which is tummy, became tummy. So the kohen has very little use for it anyway. At some point, I don't have to take it to him. There's a point of diminishing returns. Because it's just going to use it for candle or fuel anyway. At what point do I have to start taking from it? When it's 1/8 of an eighth, then I don't have to take them. The Gemara is going to explain that. Okay, let's go back to Gemara. Tamat Ninen, we're at the top of Nun Zayin with Alf, 2 dots. Tamat Ninen, look over there. Here, Kino Mitzah, Hareil Shamoicher. It's a kasha. It's a contradiction. It says here, if I poured, I'm a seller. I'm selling this wine to my customer, and I pour it into this thing, and I have some left, and it gathers on the bottom. So I, the mocher, get to keep it. It's a contradiction. Because if I, the mocher, get to keep it, the loker pay for it, why do I get to keep it? It's a contradiction to our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says it's truma. It means it belongs, so to speak, to the buyer, to the kohen. Yet here in Choshim Mishpat, I say, who does it belong to? To the seller, which is tantamount to belonging to the Yisrael by us. Stira, it's a contradiction, right? Vam Rabbi Yochanan said, "Leis kach lokech." Don't belong to lokech. It belongs to the seller. Here we say it belongs to truma, which is like the kohen, the buyer. It says a very basic answer. Mishum yush. By Choshim Mishpat, there's a concept of yush. Lokech gives up. So there's that little left in the seller's barrel. He says, "Ich bin moichel," or "Ich bin misyoish," I give it up. But here, a kohen is now within his rights to give up truma. If it's truma, it's truma. It's absolute. It's objective. It's not subjective at the desire or not desire of the kohen. Okay. Ask more of Appa Kodesh. Is the same thing also true by Kodesh, as by truma. But if you have oil from menachos and you're pouring from vessel to vessel that follow the same parameters. As Rabbi Yavo and Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yavo came and said, "Name Rabbi Yochanan." Va'af the Kodesh Ken, yes, the same parameters are true by Kodesh. Rabbi Yishavir said a very interesting thing. Lo shalom the Kodshim sheish l'matirin. It's only by Kodshim that have matirin. What does it mean to have matirin? That, let's say, the oil for menachos is mutter once you put the komets of the mincha on the mizbeach. That oil is mutter, okay? Because you put the komets on the mizbeach, so now the remaining oil is mutter. That's yesh lo matirin. It's got avo b'kachim she'elo matirin, but kachim where the Kohanim don't get to eat any of the korban, meaning such as where he brings down here the mincha of the Kohen, where the entire mincha gets put on Mizbeach, not just the kometz. Afilu kol shuei tzorech lahachzir. Then in that case, the halacha is that anything which adheres, excuse me, anything which anything, even the 3 drops, you're not allowed to be mevatel them. This is a fascinating thing. Why is that? He brings down here on the he brings down the bottom. The mizbeach can't give up hope. Can't be misyoish. Truma, there are 2 elements. There's the absolute kedusha, and there's the Kohen who would have gotten the truma. So what the Kohen who would have gotten the truma, he's Michael, he's misyoish. Once 3 drops have been poured and spilled, and nothing else is coming out, so he just says, you know what, the rest of it, I don't expect to get gesundheit. Hi, it's truma, but you can be mevatel it. But as far as the truma is concerned, you pour in more wine, more oil, and be mevatel the truma. But by hekdesh can't be meichel you. They can't be misyoish vis-a-vis you. So even after the 3 drops are poured out, hekdesh, which is inanimate, can't say I'm misyoish and I'm meichel and go be mevatel the rest. Therefore, you have to continue pouring and continuously scrub out until hekdesh gets all the possible oil or wine out of the barrel. The only time you don't have to do it is when it goes to a Kohen. Because when it goes to a Kohen, such as by a mincha, right, the oil which is left over the mincha, so the Kohen Taka can't be meichel. He can say, forget it, I don't want the rest of it. Hi, it's Kodesh. Yes, but it's Kodesh which was given to the Kohen. So therefore, the Kohen says, I don't want it anymore. And at that point, you're allowed to be mevatel it. But but in Kukachim where a Kohen doesn't get it, there's no time in which bittul is permitted.
There's a Meila issue as well.
Only if somebody who comes in, well, the milas are shava pruta. There's not a shava pruta, it's drops. So milah is not going to be an issue here. It's only going to be the question from Hektish. Okay, Rabun Barachia boy. Rabun Barachia asks the question. Hadin log shaman shal mitzora. By the oil of mitzora, it says a special shiur. It says a log. Have to have a log. So okay. So you poured out the oil you poured out the oil. The halacha is, well, the way it works is that you take from this log and you put you put on the thumbs and the toes of the Torah, right? So the rest of the oil goes to the Kohanim. So what happens? In this case? Hardin log shemen shel mitzora. This log shemen mitzora. Tzarich lahachzir or ain't tzarich lahachzir? Does it have to be exactly a log, or does it not have to be exactly a log? Literally, you have to exactly put it back or not. Now, what do we mean by this? If you're going to say you have to have exactly a log, so if that's the case, if you don't have exactly a log, meaning because there are 3 drops which were not poured, then you're missing something. In other words, again, let me make it clear. In other words, we're taking the log, we're taking from a big batch of oil, somewhere in the base I make Dasha. We're pouring into the log of the. That's a bad example. We're taking from a cup with a log, right? And we're pouring into the klishores, from which then we're going to take the water, the oil for the thumbs and the toes. Is it only a log after is it a log after I pour 3 drops? Or is I still have to continue pouring until the entire log is empty? Why should I have a havamina that it's different? Because it says log. Since it says log, maybe there are no shortcuts. Maybe even after the 3 drops are poured, I gotta pour and pour and pour and keep pouring. I can't stop pouring. That's the Gemara's question, okay? So if you're going to say you have to, it has to be a log precisely. Log, so if you don't put in the rest of the log, even after the 3 drops, you're missing. You say you don't have to. On the contrary, that means that if you keep pouring after 3 drops, it's bad. You're putting in more than a log. Because a log means 3 drops and that's it, and you're adding too much. Rabbi China lo amarke. Rabbi China didn't say it like this. Why not? Elo amar Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yeshua said, lo shal b'kochim sheish lehem matirin. He doesn't make a distinction between whether it's the log of a mitzvah or not. He says rather, where do I say that there's a kochim? I don't have to be exact on the measure when it's kochim Yerushalmi when it goes to the Kohen. So since the Kohen gets the rest of the log by mitzvah, he could say it's as if I got the entire log. He doesn't have to be picky about it. But kochim where it never goes to the Kohanim, afilu kosher tzar, there you have to be exactly meticulous. V'adein log shel semen, and now the Gemara finishes with that statement. V'adein log shel semen shel mitzvah la'afka kochim sheish matirnu. This log of the oil of the mitzvah is a kochim sheish matir, and it goes to the Kohen. Since it goes to the Kohen, you say you have to be meticulous to point out exactly. Obviously not. So it goes to the Kohen. So we have the principle of it's okay, no, if it's off by a little bit. Hador Amara says more nonetheless. The previous Gemara says that tzarich Adamra tzarich lachzir v'lochzir over mishum b'chisaron. That if you again the previous Gemara which says Rabbi Bum Bar Chia, who asked the Shaila, Rabbi Chulu Bar Chia says that he has to be precise. If it's not precise, then you're over chisaron. So therefore, it's a machloket between Rabbi Bum Bar Chia and Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Bum Bar Chia holds that log may have to be precise, although he never said it with clear-cut fashion. Rabbi Chanina said it doesn't have to be precise, again, because the Kohanim are getting it, so therefore, they don't have to be exact. Tani Rabbi Chalafta Bar Shmuel Ben Shol. Rabbi Chalafta Ben Shol saw a very big kula. Kedeira, a pot, but this is a pottery pot. It's not glass or metal. It's pottery. Shabisha ba truma, in which you cook truma. Magila b'chaim and shlosh pamim v'tadayo. You kasher 3 times in hot water and it's kosher. It's an amazing thing because we know you're not allowed to kasher pottery, right? Why not? We'll see in a minute. All right, Barabba said, you can't extrapolate from this in terms of tarfus. In terms of tarfus, this doesn't work. This only works in terms of truma. Ask well why. Rabbi Yosef said, Kashisa kumi Rabbi Ba. I asked in front of Rabbi Ba, truma bava misa. By truma, if you have it, you get death. When the veil blotas or the veil, if you go to McDonald's, you only get a lot. So I can say we're more machmil by the veils than by trumas. Amalei said, not a good question. Command Omar Me'elain Kibulaim Samais is going to be that Mises Bismanazeh are Midrabana. We accept it upon ourselves. Therefore, it's much more lighter. Rabbi Yustoi Bar Shunam Ba Kumi Rabbi Mana. He asked it for Raimana. Tanino, we're on Nunzayim base now. We learned Emir Kino Umitza. If you spilled out the water and spilled out the wine or the oil, and then you tipped it over and you gathered a little bit inside the vessel, harezu truma. So I say in that case it's truma. So we see we have a very big chumrah by truma. Vata marachein. So how come here you say let him just kasher 3 times in that water and that's sufficient? Maybe something will well up afterwards and that'll be truma. He says, you're not going to get that amount. Even the amount which gathers and collects in one area in the pot, when you turn it back on its side, you're not going to get that after you've put it 3 times through hot water. Because that water gets out all the major deposits, anything which might even come remotely close to such a deposit, and therefore the hagola, once you've rinsed out 3 times that water, that's sufficient. I no longer have to be worried about any truma there whatsoever, and I can use it for any purpose I want. Okay? Says the Brisa further. Tanya, we learned. Shemarim shel truma. If you have dregs of truma, harishon v'asheni also. Now, this is a very interesting thing. You have dregs of truma, and you put them in a strainer, and you run water over them, and that water becomes, at least to a certain extent, what does it become? What? Comes wine. Comes wine, right? So yeah, the dregs are of truma, as you're pointing out. So the dregs are of truma, so that's the case. So then it becomes truma wine. The point is, at some point you reach diminishing returns, and the water doesn't become wine; it just remains water, right? So how does that work? The first time you pass water over them, and the second time you pass water over them, also the water becomes also because they become truma wine. The third time mutter just picks up a little bit of taste. It's not real truma, and therefore it's mutter. That's only if you used water. Havalonos and mine, you just let the dregs sit there and drip, and you collected the drippings from the dregs. I feel shlishi also, even the third time around, it's also because obviously it's not being diluted. Rameir Omer. Rameir says even when you used water, the third time around, it's not necessarily just water. If it picks up a significant amount of the taste of the truma, it has the parameters of truma. We're with Shita. Who says not that way?
There is something about Mayor Shita on nosing everybody else with regard to
I don't doubt it. I'm just not familiar with it offhand. Shmorim shel meiser sheni. If you have dregs of meiser sheni, we're more kuladik. Rishon also, the first time I pass water through its aser, the sheni mutter, second time I pass water through it, it's a mutter. Rameo me'ach sheni, even though it says, we look at the sheni, the second time you pass it through. And if it still has a taste, a flavor of the meiser sheni, it has a parameter of meiser sheni. Right, the Yochim B'Shem B'Shem Ben Yitzhak says, hektish k'minyan no. What do you have there? What do you have by hektish? What? You have hektish k'minyan no? Oh, k'mi manod? Okay, it's the same word, obviously, but it means it's like this. It's a very cool thing the Gemara noticed. By truma, how many times did it also? What? Twice and maybe a third time. By meiser sheni, it's maybe twice. That happens to be correspond more or less to the Tuma, right? Truma has shlishi, and Rechulin only has sheni, and meiser sheni is like chulin in this respect. So hektish is also kiminyano, like it's count by Tuma, right? That just like by Tuma it goes to Revi, right? So too in terms of we're passing one of the dregs, the first 3 times it's for sure still kachim, and the 4th time is going to be the machlokas between Rameir and Chachamim. Okay? Chaysim shel zav is zav now. We have a chamber pot used by a zav or a zava for urinating. So you have zav or zava urinating here, right? If you put water into it and rinse it out, Harishon, the first time, or Sheni Tame, it's still Tame because I still think that it still has a character of urine. Hashlishi, once you wash it out the 3rd time, Tahar, then the water is Tahar, and we don't assume there's any water in that urine in that 3rd time around. By Medvar Murim, when is that true? When you rinse it out with water. If you're not rinsing it out with water, but with the urine of somebody who's Tahar, urine is opposed to Tameh urine. I feel that Siri Tameh. Even the 10th time it's still Tameh because the urine is mechazik the urine, and therefore it says it didn't have the urine of his off. Mean b'mina. Right, Rabbi said, he says, like Rabbi says, mean b'mina lo bata. That's right. Okay? Kavate v'trumas ma'aser shel mai. I don't know if you have that header, do you? Okay, we said in the Mishnah that as long as there's a certain amount of trumas ma'aser shel mai, even if it's tummy, you have to give it to a Kohen. Rabbi Yehuda Barach said, we don't the son or the daughter. To Rabbi Yisrael China of Rabbi Yisrael China said, name of his uncle B'Shem Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina. Baruch say is the son of the sister of Yosef Bar Chanina. He was a nephew, right? The son of the sister. Pachas mikan. If you have less than an amount, an eighth of an eighth of Trumas Meiser of the Mai, you know what? Don't even bother giving it to the Kohen. No seminary, put your own candle at home. It's too little and it's the Mai, so you don't have to bother giving it to the Kohen. Rabbi Yanai B'Shem Rabbi Yudan says, B'ochal k'dei levei avashal beit zakala. What is the shiur mishnah of 1/8 of an eighth? It's an uchal, which is a shiur, which is enough of the oil in order to cook a small egg. And that's the shiur, at which point you still have to give it to a Kohen. Let's say you don't give it to a Kohen, because it can use the spool. That's all he was talking about, where it's tameh. Avol tor, but the Trumas Meiser of the Mai is tor. Afilu kosher, even if it's a minute amount. Tzarech lachzir, you have to give it to the Kohen. Over the Mai, and that's also a thing about the Mai where it's questionable. Avol bivara, if it's definite truma, ben tameh, ben tor, ben rob, ben mu, what? Whether there was tameh or tor, whether it was a lot or a little, regardless, tzarech lachzir, you always have to give the truma to a Kohen. Yes.
Real quick. The mayor says also
Yes. Oh. I mean, yeah, he is disputing. Yeah, he is. He says he knows the time. It's that's right. So it's just water with time. It's not wine. Right. Okay, it says the Mishnah further. Kashine Truma. We have this is animal fodder of Truma. Now, how do you have animal fodder of Truma? Normally, animal fodder can become Truma. So we're talking about a case of animal fodder which is suitable for human beings under very, very difficult conditions. Now, Karshinim, he says in English, as an English name. It's not going to help you at all. But the English name of Karshinim is vetch. Oh, come on, you don't know what it is. What? It's a weed. If you eat vetch, then you'll kvetch. It's the type of grass. So that's what it is. Karshinim. Okay? Next time I ask what is the clue for it?
No, that's the clue. It's vetch in the end.
It's not kvetch-ers? Okay, in any event, Kashine Truma. Since it's not real Truma, because vetch, who eats vetch? So therefore, you can give it to your animals to eat. It's not considered to be a hefsed. Yisrael shesachar para mikohen. Yisrael who rented a cow from a Kohen, machila kashine truma, since it's still the Kohen's really, you can give a truma vetch to eat. However, Kohen shesachar para mikohen, if a Kohen rented a cow from Yisrael, alpha pishim is on a sale of love, even though he's got to fuel it. Since it doesn't belong to him, he can't give a truma vetch. Yisrael shesham para mikohen, a Jew who got a para from a Kohen as an investment. Now what happens is they both own it as partners. Yisrael is going to work with it. When it grows older, he's going to sell it and they'll split the profits. Lo yachlena karshine truma. Yisrael can't, even though it's a partnership with a Kohen, Yisrael can't give a truma to eat. Why is that? Because the Kohen is never getting this animal back. Once it's raised, it's going to be sold. So therefore, it's not considered to be fully his that the Yisrael can give a truma to eat, and vice versa. Kohen shesham parami. What? No, they don't do it. The Yisrael does all the work. That's key. Look at the next line. Kohen Shamparim Yisrael, if a Kohen takes an animal from Yisrael as an investment, now he's raising it, so Machila Karshine Truma. So even though they're partners, he can give it to Truma because it's in his possession. Okay? Tanya, we learned. Oh, let's go to the Gemara. Okay? Let's go to the Gemara. Tanya. You don't have Tanya. Minayel Prosa Shel Kohen. Right? How do you know that the part of a Kohen, that the cow of the Kohen, Shaisa Shuma Yisrael, which Yisrael is raising for investment purposes, Shein Machil, which we're not allowed to give it truma to eat. Shemar, it says the Kohen Kikne Kinyan Ka Nefesh Kinyan Kohen Ki Yikne Nefesh Kinyan Kaspo. Now it says a Kohen, if he owns an individual, then he can give that individual a slave and so on and so forth to eat truma. The pasuk goes on. Hu yochabo, he will eat it. The Yalid Beiso, and also people born in his house. Heim yoluchlu belachmo, they will eat in his house. So that means that it's the kinyan of the Kohen's kesef, which is also in his house. But here, where he gave it to Yisrael to raise and then to sell, it may be a kinyan of the Kohen, but it's not a Yalid, it's not Beiso, it's not his house. So therefore, the Yisrael, the shepherd, can't give a truma to eat. Tanya, we learned, Heim yochlu, the pasuk goes on to say, they will eat. Heim ochlim, normally, only human beings can eat truma. Ve'ein habei mochel, less than animal cannot eat truma. So is that true also by karshinim? Yochel echenim karshinim, maybe you can't even feed it vetch. Down below my nefesh. That's what the pasuk says, nefesh. That you can even give your nefesh, and nefesh means also animals, because animals also have a nefesh. You can even give your nefesh truma. So what truma can you give them? Not truma, which is normally human consumption. That would be degrading it. Rather, truma is something which is animal for animal consumption, only occasionally used for human beings, and that is vetch. Okay, we're on the top of Nun Chesel Ralph now. He chose. You have a different gear here.
Oh, yeah, it was very different. We were all winging it.
Okay, well, you should tell me about that when it happens.
He interrupted me most of the show.
Right. All right. I don't know. East Tanya. We have a brayso which says, Tani, Yochol lo yachin b'karshinim v'tilson. Is it possible you're not allowed to eat, to give the animal to eat either vetch or tilson, which is a kind of legume? Rabbi Chizkiah and Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rabbi Chia b'Shem Yochanan said, leiskan tilson. You can't. You don't. That implies that you can give the animal to eat tilson. You can't, even though sometimes it's used as animal fodder. Tilson, you can't give an animal to eat, even though raisa. You know why? Because it's a type of grain. It's a type of animal. It's a type of human consumption designated legume, and therefore it's trumas doraisa, and therefore you can't give it to an animal to eat. Okay, only the Cretan, where the trumas only drabanan anyway. So then we say, since it's only rabbinically ordained and it's normally eaten by animals, so therefore you can give it to animals. But tilson, which is very often eaten by human beings, you can't give truma of tilson to an animal. Okay? Now the next case, now we go back to the Mishnah, not to the Mishnah itself. We go to the next case in the Mishnah, and I have a header here. I don't think you have the header. The Kohen Shampar, if a Kohen is the one who takes the cow as an investment himself. Okay? So now where you have it, Lokain Tani, the third line down to the end line. Didn't we learn? Minai Kohen Shekona Evan Yisrael Boshutfus. How do we know the case where Kohen bought a slave and Yisrael has a partnership in it? Even if the Jews' partnership is 1 in 100, Sheinu Machilo Truma. The Yisrael can't give a Truma to eat. The Kohen can't even give a Truma to eat. It's a contradiction to our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said if the Kohen is raising it, even though the Yisrael is a partner, he's allowed to give a Truma. Here it says as long as Yisrael has 1/100th of it, that's it. the Kohen can't give it truma to eat. At time Loma is supposed to teach us this: the Kohen kiyikne nefesh. A Kohen, when he acquires the nefesh, meaning when he acquires the whole thing, but if only as part of it, he can't give it truma to eat. So Tani Bar Kapora, you're right. Bar Kapora learned now, like our Mishnah, echadzu v'echadzu lo socha b'truma. As long as he throws any portion, whether he's the guy who's raising it or he's the guy who's paying for it, so the Kohen can't feed the animal truma. Okay, let's go back to the Mishnah again. Madlikin Shemet Sreifa. The asterisk. The last Mishnah in the parak. Last Mishnah in the Sechta. No, sorry, the last in my. Sorry. Madlikin Shemet Sreifa b'tei knesios b'tei midrashos. You can light Shemet Sreifa. Shemet Sreifa is truma which got what? Yeah, it's your last Mishnah, right? Madlikin Shemet Sreifa b'tei knesios b'tei midrashos. You can light Shemet Sreifa, meaning this is truma which became tummy. You can light it in a shul and a base medrash. Even in dark alleys. Valgabi cholim, and you can also use it on by sick patients. B'shus kohen with the Kohen's permission. This is a very interesting halacha. This is going to take us to the end of the Masechta. The halacha is shemen sreifa is mutter midaraisa. Truma oil which got tummy. Midaraisa it's mutter for Yisrael to have hana from it. He can use the light. Rabbanan didn't like that, so they made it takana. They made it only if the Kohen gives permission. However, there's certain cases where it's assumed the Kohen gives permission. Whereas it, for one of the cases, tzorchei rabbi. For a base knesses, a base medrash, even to light streets. In that case, we assume the Kohen gives permission, we don't have to ask him permission. By a choyle, if you want to use it by a choyle, you have to ask the Kohen permission. Now, there are two aspects in asking the Kohen permission as well. One aspect is that the Kohen has to give permission, because it's truma. The other aspect is that the Kohen has to derive hanor from it. He must derive hanor from it. You, Yisrael, can also derive hanor from it, but a Kohen must be deriving hanor from it in some way, shape, or form for you to tag along and tag on him.
But Tova Sanar, is that enough?
That we're going to discuss that. We're going to discuss that. Although we won't use the word discussly, it'll be implicit in the Gemara's discussion.
There we go.
Now she's allowed to have hanor from Truma, right? Because she's married to a Kohen. So now her father's Malik Virushusa, she can give her father permission to light on her account. Okay? Let's see the Gemara. Shimon Barba. Oh, you have a header which I don't have. Well, because it's right next to the Mishnah. Yeah. Okay. Shimon Barba b'shem Rabbi Yochanan said, "Keni mas nisa." This is what the Mishnah means. Al gabi cholim b'shus kohen. When you use it in the presence of a sick person, then you have to get specific authority from the Kohen to do so. Kamaisa, but in shuls and batei medrash and in streets, afilu shelo b'shus kohen. You don't need its explicit permission. It's implicit.
Why does the
because the chol is Yisrael. So he doesn't. Maybe he doesn't.
Maybe both big mitzvahs. I think for help a whole feel better, even if it's psychological, by lighting the.
That's not as big a mitzvah. It's Tzorach Rabbi. It's not as big a mitzvah. Tzorach Tzibur is a much greater mitzvah. Okay, because it's the masses, the multitude. Now the thing is like this. The problem is that if you're lighting a candle by Knesset's base medrash or in a dark street, a Kohen can get hanor from it. Where's the hanor for the Kohen in the Chola's house? Bear in mind, remember we said the two aspects: there's permission and hanor. Where's he getting the hanor? Says no. Says more. Time Rabbi Chia bikur cholim ein lo shiur. There's no shiur for visiting sick people. Rabbi Chia bar Chia said Mastisa Amar Kain. We learn it from our Mishnah. Why? Because what's the heter to light in the choil's house? Because the Kohen could come anytime being Mavakar Choila. So it's the need of the Kohen. Even the Kohen visited already today. Maybe he'll come again. So therefore, it's really not no of the Kohen. It's tenuous. I grant you. That's the constant I know of the Kohen that be a light there, because who knows when he's want to come in to be Mekai in the mitzvah of Bikur Kohen. So that's his Hanoah. Okay? Now we're going to have a whole slew of cases like this. Rabbi Yirmiyah said, Kumi Rabbi Zira in front of Rabbi Zira. Ad Kidum Truma Shenoflo Beis Avi Mo Kohen. Now remember, as I told you, there are two aspects. The Kohen's got to get Hanoah, and the Kohen's got to give permission. So it sounds like when the Rabbi Yirmiyah said name Rabbi Zira, I want to say a chiddush. Rather, he said in front of Rabbi Zira, not name Rabbi Zira. He said, I want to say a chiddush. Where the Yisrael inherited Truma. In other words, his grandfather's a Kohen, his maternal grandfather, who died, and he got left the Truma. So in that case, he doesn't have to ask permission. He has to find a Kohen to have Hanoah, but he doesn't have to ask permission. Why? Because it's his Truma. He owns it. He doesn't need permission. But I want to say, even a step further, says Rabbi Yirmiyah. I want to say, even if a Yisrael has regular Truma, which he separated, has he yet given to a Kohen? He hasn't yet given to a Kohen. He can now use it to burn. He can now burn it, as long as he has a Kohen to have Hanoah from it. Says the Gemara, "Vafilu b'trumas grono." Even with Kohen, which is not the Yisrael's, it's a Kohen's, but Yisrael can burn it once it became tamei. Says Gemara, "Amalei man leima b'trumas grono." Who said you could do it with truma like this? How can you say such a thing? He needs to have permission from a Kohen. Where's his permission? He doesn't own this truma. Kohanim are on this truma. Where does he have permission? So Rabbi Yossi had the same achloikas. Rabbi Yossi said like Rabbi Yirmiyah, and Rabbi Yossi like Rabbi Zira. So says the Gemara Takin, Mandamar b'truma is grono. Rabbi Yirmiyah and Rabbi Yossi says even truma which is not yours. It's you just separated it and it became tamei. But Mandamar b'truma is grono. Nidlak vasi, but he could just burn it at will. He's stealing for the Kohanim. How can you do it? Says, well, you know what? That's a good question. Ask Command Omar means, I'm going to reject this position. The only time you're allowed to burn Truma, Tmeya, without the permission of the Kohen, is when you own the Truma, such as you inherited the Truma. Otherwise, you need permission. Now, he brings down here a very interesting thing. He says that it could be, Rabbi Yirmiyah is talking about a case, where they say with Truma, which has not yet been given to a Kohen, you can still burn it on your own initiative. Specifically with Truma, we're using it for a mitzvah. Because we said that in our Mishnah, there are times you don't need the explicit rishus of the Kohen. For Dvar mitzvah, such as in Shul, Beis Medrash, or for Mevos HaFeilim, or Chayla under certain circumstances. So it's possible to say that Rabbi Yirmiyah and Rabbi Zira, Rabbi Yirmiyah and Rabbi Yossi said it's okay. Rabbi Yirmiyah and Rabbi Yonah said it's okay. They're specifically talking about where it's a case where there's a mitzvah involved. Okay? Okay. The Bar says, besides, I got another question on you. And the opinion which wanted to say that the guy in his barn can burn the truma which became tamei, even though he hasn't yet given to the Kohen. Says more of located Edo. Another problem. Don't you have to give it to a Kohen? Where'd you give it to a Kohen? You have to give it to a Kohen. Says more it's where you had, so what happened was, you had another guy in the barn with you, not necessarily a Kohen. You said to the other guy in the barn, here, be zeicha in this truma for Yankel the Kohen. And then he took it back immediately and burnt it. But it's not gezel. Why? Because we said, by truma tmeya, if it's l'dvar mitzvah, which our assumption is, then you are allowed to assume that the Kohen would give rishus, and you're allowed to use it for that purpose. Okay, so truma tmeya has two advantages. If it's a mitzvah, then we assume the Kohen give rishus, and if it's a mitzvah of Rabbim, we assume that Kohanim are getting a benefit from it because they're also part and parcel of the Rabbim. Okay?
What's the advantage of having that second person?
He'll be zocher for the Kohen.
Why? Is his representative?
Yeah, zocher on shlofonov. You don't need an appointment in order to have a representative. Okay, if it's a merit, you can be zoicha anyway. Okay? Says we're Tanya. Now we're going to learn, as I said, a whole bunch of cases in this regard. Tanya, I saw a coin, we're partners in a store. Mimali Yisrael Saner Shemen Sreifa. The Jew can fill up the candle in the store with the oil of truma, which is tamei, which is supposed to be burned. And it goes to the second floor. Comes back down on the first floor. To do the needs of the Kohen without the Kohen's express permission. Why? Because this is the needs of the Kohen. So we assume the Kohen would agree, and the Kohen's also deriving benefit, not direct. But like you said before, Tovas Hana, he's getting indirect benefits. Why? Because Yisrael's doing their common work together, right? Yisrael's doing their common work through this light. Abba lo shel Yisrael. But if Yisrael's work, which is exclusively his, then he can't do it by the light of this candle. Okay? Kohen Shabbat to Yisrael. A Kohen who came by Yisrael lasus cheshbanimo to make a cheshbon with Yisrael. Malik al gabo shemen sreifa. So the Kohen, the Yisrael is allowed when the Kohen is present to use shemen sreifa to illuminate their transaction. Says more. Avo bichein. Wait a minute. Eno tzorach schiyah. If it's talking about a case where the Yisrael never gave this truma to a Kohen, don't Kohanim have to acquire this truma? So how does Yisrael have the right to do it? Again, Rishus is necessary for two perspectives. A, that the Kohen should have anoah, that we have, because he makes a cheshbonos of the Kohen. But what's the other thing we need? We need to have that it all belongs to the Kohen, and the Kohen gives you the right to do it. So it says, so about a case where you were mizakit to this Kohen or to another Kohen, or of course he's there, you can give it to him himself, and then you take it back to use it, that's okay. Tanya, we learned another very interesting halacha. A Jewish girl comes in to get a light, not for smoking cigarettes, get a light for a candle from a kohenes. So Tavelas Apsila b'Shemen Sreifa, she can dip her wick into Shemen Sreifa, into this oil of truma which is tamei, umadlekas, and light the wick. Now this is a kasha. How can we allow this? She's getting a noah from truma, and it's not for the Kohen's purpose. It's for her own personal purpose. So how do we allow this? So it says, Rabbi Huna b'Shem Rabbi Yanai says, Shas mishlachas zeivim hoisa. You know when they're matter this? When there are a lot of wolves overrunning the land of Israel, like the lion down in Florida. So they had a lot of dangerous animals. You didn't hear about the lion? You didn't hear about the lion? They captured her in Orlando, I think it was. Okay. So they needed candles to look for the lion, right? So then, since it's takona, so they allowed the Rabbana relaxed their takona. It was their takona that you can't use the oil of Shemen Sreifa except with the permission of the Kohen, and where the Kohen's getting hanoah as well. But since they're takona, so therefore in this case, where there's a takona, they relax the takona. But here's the interesting part. That was Shas B'Shas Evim Hoysa. But once they allowed it then, they left that loophole intact. The law might based in Ubito. Basically did not get up again and be Mavato this loophole. So generally it's also to derive benefit from Shemen Sreifa Shel Kohen. Unless it's for the Rishus of the Kohen, and it's for Hanoah for the Kohen. Except where you're dipping a wick into Shemen Sreifa oil as starter, there that's mutter, even because they never put back the original Isra in this case. They have no one come back. Tanya.
It's a commentary on the state of the after a couple of the uprisings against the Romans.
That they had wolves overriding the land. That's good. That's a good point. Tanya, we learned. Bakro shel Kohen, shoya machalei tel Yisrael. You have a Kohen's cow, which is eating in Yisrael's barn or stable. A Kohen's garment is being woven by a Yisrael tailor. Malik al Gabo Shemin Sreifa Veno Choshesh. Yisrael can light Shemin Sreifa over this garment, over this cow, and he doesn't have to worry. Why? Because this is a case where the Kohen clearly is being nena. How is the Kohen being nena? Getting it directly, but his cow is getting fed, or his garment is getting woven by this light. So this again, the Tovas Hanoas for Kohen Shabbat Asos Cheshbon Yisrael Chaveiro. Another kula. A Kohen comes to make a cheshbon with Yisrael. Vili Kagabo Shemin Sreifa. So in order to make the cheshbon, the Kohen comes to Yisrael's house and he lights Shemin Sreifa in the Yisrael's house. Okay, he brings it with him. Then the Kohen leaves. Nonetheless, we don't require the Kohen, the Yisrael, to extinguish it until it extinguishes on its own. So once they started beheter, they can continue. Since at the time that the Kohen lit it, he was using it even when he leaves, he continued to let it burn. Okay? Couple more maisim. Rabbi Chananya from Achbor, from the city of Achbor, who was Israel. He was a worker by Rabbi Chia in Tzipori. Mi'ozele, every night, I guess, used to go home from Tzipori to Achbor. Rabbi Chia would give him a lantern full of Shemin Sreifa. How can you allow that? Sorry. How can you allow it if locates Arvina Meimar? Don't we hold Lasot Sochav Shel Kohen? They can only use the Shemin Sreifa for Kohen's needs. Avaloshe Yisrael, but here he's giving it to the Yisrael, to his worker to walk home with. Amrei. So they said the lo of it they came. If he wouldn't have given him the candle, lo of us, he wouldn't have come to work, right? Because he needed it in order to get home. Sabri Meimar. So they wanted to say Kadyam to the base they have a matfile. At least when he got home, he has to extinguish it, because then it's no longer necessary. Amrei said no. By having this candle is part of his wages, almost. It's part of his wages, it's an incentive for him to work, and therefore he's allowed to use it to the hilt. Why? They came because he gets these candles, whose sahar literally means he moons. But here means he stayed late, right, when the moon was out. By day can, and by this candle, who korats, he gets up early in the morning. So a goodwill gesture is important. It's company perks. So the truth is that this is the heter for tips to goyim and things like that. It was an issue of lo suchane. I just heard yesterday, somebody, Rabbi Twersky, told me he doesn't believe it. No, he said he does believe it. I told him I don't believe it. But he said that he just heard that the Brisker Rov, Velvela, another case of briskheit, you'll enjoy it. The Brisker Rov is very makbid not to give goyish taxi drivers tips because of lo suchanim. Because not supposed to give them free gifts. So therefore he was very makbid to get exact change, never to tip. And it's not recorded if he tipped the Jewish drivers, but he certainly didn't tip the non-Jewish drivers. So in any event, but here you see, it's not that a tip is good because you get better service for a tip. Okay, so that, I don't want to say on tape the response to that. You're going to ask me after shiur, but I have to say about that. Okay, says Ada Shamsha. Ada was a Shamish in the house of a Kohen. He asked his Kohen master, Shol Rabbi Ami, who was a Kohen, begin to anatzava psila min choila. Since I take the wick and put it in starter fluid. Well, it's in order to start a wick, they used to dip it in oil. So I dip it in Shemin Sreifa. I put it in Shemin Sreifa on Erev Shabbos. And then, Ma'u Madlik B'Shubso, can I use it on Shabbos itself? Now, why do you ask the question? Because we have halacha, those of you who say B'Mem Madlikin. You all daven Ashkenaz here?
I do.
B'Mem Madlikin, it says, Ein Madlikin B'Shemin Sreifa. What? This oil of Truma, which became Tomei. You can't use it to light your Shabbos candles. And the Gemara, it's brought down, the reason is because Emily Shemetz Reifa, it's being brought down. You can't use it because it's too similar to Kachim. You're not allowed to bring Kachim on Shabbos. So also they made it takana not to bring Truma on Shabbos because they're very similar to each other. So ask Gemara, if that's the case, ask Ad Shimshon, what about not burning on Shabbos, not using it as the fuel in the lantern, but using it as starter fluid? Can you use it for that purpose? So he said yes. Batu agab sila. It gets absorbed into the wick, so that's not part of Takon of Chazal, not to use Shemetz Reifa on Shabbos. That's not the issue. Hoga Rabbi Yehuda ben Pazi, Rabbi Yehuda ben Paskin. I have Elaine, the Rabbi Nechemia came to people in the house of Rabbi Nechemia that way as well. Rabbi Abba Nasib Sila. Rabbi Abba used to use such a wick. Rabbi Elo lo Nasib Sila wouldn't use such a wick. Says the Gemara, Leisa Rabbi Elo hadid Rabbi Ami. Doesn't Rabbi Elo hold of that which Rabbi Ami said, that it's okay because the Shemetz Reifa gets absorbed in the wick? So Rabbi Elo Mishum Gezo. Rabbi Elo, it seems, was not a Kohen. So he thought it hold it was theft to Kohanim to use the Shemetz Reifa, even if it's absorbed into the wick. Below then, and besides that, Shamsham Mevaz B'Zor Be'Kdesho, his Shamish was made, always used to make a mockery of Kochim. So therefore, in order to strengthen in the eyes of his shamish the holiness, he would not let him use a wick, even if it had been only soaked in Shemetz Reifa as starter. He wouldn't let them use that kind of wick on Shabbos. Okay, so far so good. Gamliel the Zuga, which he says is a glassmaker. I would think it means a barber, because Zuga is scissors. So anyway, Gamliel Zuga. Yeah. Do you know their name means scissors? Yeah. It's only not in Yiddish, in Aramaic. Gamliel Zuga. Shal Rabbi Yossi, asked Rabbi Yossi, Ma'u losiv shemen chulin ulahadlik. You have a candle which has shemen sreifa, in it, the oil of turmeric, which is time which you can't use on Shabbos. Ki add on a chulin oil and light it. Do you have the place, Mr. Zuger? You seem like you know the place. What? Okay, Ma'u losiv shemen chulin ulahadlik. Amalei lo tani Rabbi Yeshua. So he said, Rabbi Yeshua didn't say, El ein mechayven el solamat soso. You're not, when you don't have to clean out the keli from Shemetz Reifa before Shabbos completely, and then put in the chulin oil in order to light on Shabbos. But you're not allowed to add. You have to pour it all out. You don't have to clean out the kli, tip top. But you can't, if you have Shemetz Reifa and you can't just add and light on Shabbos, that's no good. Rabbi Avo said, not true. Shonali Yonasan Ba'an Achmoy. Yonasan Ben Achmoy taught me. Bas Kohen Shloisel Minas Erev Shabbos Yimchal Shecha. A daughter of a Kohen who's standing Erev Shabbos right before nightfall. Will be other than there, and she has a candle lamp to light. V'sochot Shemetz Reifa, it just has Truma Tmeo oil in it. She can add chulin into it to madlekas. So you see, you can add and be mavato. Amalei Rabbi Zira said, "Umative, what's the story with this guy? Literally, what's his quality? What's the story of this guy Yerushalmi ben Achmor? I never heard of him before. Is he reliable? Not reliable?" Amalei said, "Adam Gadol, he's a great man. Ubaki b'Mishnah Seino, and he was a baki in Mishnayos. Not only that." Upashi Rabbi Chia the Kfar Tchumen Kume Rebbe Rabbi Chia from Kfar Tchumen praised Yonasan ben Achmoy in front of Rebbe, in front of Yonasi, Umanisi Chacham, and Rebbe appointed him a Chacham. So if Yonasan ben Achmoy said you can add chulin oil and be mavato the shemen sreifa and use it then for Shabbos candles, for line, and you can use it. Okay, Madlikin looks like we'll make it. Going back to the Mishnah. Maliki miveis ha-Mishnah. Do you have that case in the Mishnah? Maliki beis ha-Mishnah. You can light candles in a beis ha-Mishnah. Avulova beis ha-Avel. You can light candles of Truma Tmeya by a chasne, but not by a house of Avelus. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, that's one shita. Rabbi Yossi made the exact opposite, but base Avel, in the house of Avelus, Avelo base Hamishta, but not in the house of a Chasna. Yes, total else base of right. Meir, Oser Kamakani forbids in both places. Rabbi Shimon Matir Kamakani, Rabbi Shimon is Matir in both places. Okay, so we have 4 shitas, all 4 different shitas. Let's go to the Gemara. My time, yeah, you have a header, right? Top of Nun Tasma. Malim Beis Hamishla Beis Havel Di Rabbi Yehuda. Beis Beis Havel Lo Beis Mishnah Meir Oitzakam Shus Mishnah. Beis Kamakar Shim Mate Kamakan. My time with Rabbi Yehuda. What's the logic of Rabbi Yehuda? Beis HaMishnah. He says that in a Beis HaMishnah you can use Shem and Tzreifa. Why? I date them on Neo Nakim because they have clean clothes there. So Lo Misaskin Bey. They're not going to come close to the oil, and they're not going to come to drink it. Because we're afraid they're going to drink it, and it's also because it's Truma Tamea. So therefore they'll stay away from it, that's okay. I have a base of but in a house of veils, I date them on nail and sewing because the garment's all dirty. Misaskin Bey, they might come to actually come close to it, and might come to eat it, so that's no good. My time of the Rabbi Yossi, what's the logic of Rabbi Yossi? The Beis Avel, I date them clean because they're humble, they're subordinate. Lo Misaskin Bey, they stay away from the candles, they don't get involved with them. Beis HaMishnah, but a Beis HaMishnah, they didn't bechizin because they're in a good frivolous mood. Misaskin Bey, they might get involved with the candles. My time of the Rabbi Meir, what's the logic of Rabbi Meir, whose answers both? He says, but Beis Avel, I date them on there and so in the Beis Avel, because they're in disgusting clothes, they'll start dabbling the oil. Well, Beis HaMishnah, they didn't bechizin because they're too happy, they'll start dabbling the oil. My time, the Rabbi Shimon, what's the logic? Rabbi Shimon's mati in both places. Beis Avel, in the house of veils, I date them clean because they're humble, they'll stay away from the oil. Beis HaMishnah, I think not just humble, they're down low to the ground. So they're away from the candles, right? Which are higher up. And Beis HaMishnah, they them on air Nikiyum because they're dressed well. They'll stay away from the candles. In the Bay Rabbi Yanai, look, Rabbi Shimon who said it's okay in both places. Rabbi Yaakov Baruch Hashem, Rabbi Yossi said, look, Rabbi Shimon loves Rabbi Shimon as well. Rabbi Yossi, Tzaydinaya, boy, come here, Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Yossi from Sidon. Asked Rabbi Yirmiyah, the low came honor. I mean, if you wouldn't have told me halachas like Rabbi Shimon, you don't think you would have known it? What would I have said otherwise? Right, man, Rabbi Shimon anyway. Ain't a look, Rabbi Shimon isn't look like Rabbi Shimon all over. Amrlosi said, yes, that's true. But that's true normally. Amrlo kas shall kas koidmini. But because there are other rabbis here. Kas koidmini literally means a previous group. But here means there are other rabbis in the Mishnah who have other shittas. So I might have taken them into account, right? Rabbi Yehuda Oimer may ain't stem Rabbi Yehuda, and they're like machriim, right? They're making a pshaga. Rabbi Yehuda takes into account both of them and says that Rabbi Yehuda draws a distinction. Rabbi Meir says also across the board, and Rabbi Shimon says mutter across the board. Rabbi Yehuda is selective, one is mutter, one is also, and Rabbi Yossi is selective. Meir says one is mutter, one is also. And Rabbi Yehuda, I might have said that we take them, that they really are better shittas, those two shittas, because they're machriim. And we would say in Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi, halachas like Rabbi Yossi in his shita, who said it's okay in Avelus, but not in the Chasta. So therefore you have to tell me that we don't go like Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi, we go like Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Meir, and we pass Rabbi Shimon over Rabbi Meir. Okay, let me call the people in for the siyum. The last Gemara Masechta Terumos, this is the 6th Masechta in Zroim, which we're finishing. Ma'u lahalik shemen sreifa b'Chanukah. Yana diyayma. Can one use oil of Truma Tmeya on Chanukah? Now, one is not allowed to use oil of Truma Tmeya to light Shabbos candles. Can one use the oil of Truma Tmeya on Chanukah to light Chanukah candles? Says the Gemara, Amri Debei Rabbi Yanai, so it said in the house of Rabbi Yanai, Maligan shemen sreifa b'Chanukah. You can use oil which is tamei, oil of Truma Tmeya to light Chanukah candles. Other Rabbi Nasa said, it's interesting, Rabbi Nasa, Rabbi Nace, so in Yerushalmi they all have funny names, and I don't remember Rabbi Nasa before in any event, so it sounds like this is like some special name. Leisan achachim laba, the ima. I never knew my father, excuse me, Leisan achachim laba. The ima, but my mother said, she said to me, Avu Chava Omar, your father used to say, Misha Elo Shemen Shel Chulin, somebody who doesn't have regular Chulin oil to light for Chanukah candles, Malik Shemen Tzreifa b'Chanukah, he can light Shemen Tzreifa, he can light oil of Truma Tmeya on Chanukah. He has the right to do so. This is where we pass in Halach L'maisa, that if you don't have Chulin oil, Mizman is it's not Halach L'maisa, if you don't have Chulin oil, then you use Truma Tmeya oil in order to light Chanukah candles. Now, a couple of interesting thoughts of pre-associating here. There's the Halach of Ner Chanukah is a mitzvah which was given to Aaron, and then afterwards was given to all of Bnei Yisrael, right? Halach of Ner, that's what the Balos Chasaneros, the famous Ramban there, who says that there was that halach of the menorah, and then later on it spread from Aaron to Bnei Yisrael, but it really comes from Aaron because the way it spread to all of Am Yisrael is by the Chashmonoim, because the Chashmonoim took it and they expanded on it because of their Mesiras Nefesh. It was expanded to mitzvah which applies to all of Am Yisrael. So the interesting thing here is that Hadlaka Shemen Tzreifa. When you use Shemen Tzreifa, it's not just the Kohen who's allowed to use the Shemen Tzreifa. It's not, here we're seeing even Yisrael can use the Shemen Tzreifa as his Ner Chanukah. So here too is something which is specially designated for Kohen, but we're allowed to ultimately any Yisrael gets the right to use it. Any Yisrael gets the right to use it. Now the Gemara had said previously, you need the Reshus of a Kohen and need the Hanoah of a Kohen in order to use Shemen Tzreifa. A Yisrael can't use Shemen Tzreifa. It has to be with the Reshus of the Kohen, and the Kohen has to have Hanoah from it. So the Gemara gives the Achronim here to say a couple of answers. They say, first of all, a Kohen wants a Yisrael to be able to do a mitzvah with his money, so the Kohen would give Reshus, assume Reshus. And this is as far as the Hanoah. It's interesting what the Shu answers in Shabbos. He says the pshat is not that a Yisrael is not allowed to get Hanoah, but rather that not the Yisrael is not allowed to get, that Yisrael can't get Hanoah from it instead of a Kohen. But here the Yisrael doesn't get Hanoah from it. Why? Because mitzvah slav lehenos nidnu, and also two reasons. Both of them, mitzvah slav lehenos nidnu, and ner Chanukah is also b'Hanoah. So therefore, it's not a problem here. But in any event, so here, as I said, Shemen Tzreifa really belongs to the Kohanim, and you need really the Reshus of a Kohen generally. But here we say the Kohanim have the right. Here we say any Yisrael has the right to use it. Now, there's a comparison I want to make here, which is that the unique quality of Ner Chanukah is light from darkness, or in Choshech, right? And that was really the Nes of Chanukah, which was Rabim Biyad Ma'atim. You had a lot of Tumah, and then the little bit of Tara, which there was there, which was the Kohanim, which are the Bnei Chashmonoim, made that there should be light in the darkness. Truma, it's similar. That you have a lot of chulin, and you take a little bit of truma, and you give it to the Kohanim, and that represents a unique devotion to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Mesiras Nefesh of, even though you have a lot which is chulin, like a lot which is darkness, you have a little bit which you give to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Ma'atim by Chanukah, and the little bit which you give is truma to HaKadosh Baruch Hu as well. Now, in this respect, I wanted to say, it's true that they say that Shemen Tzreifa, you can't light on Shabbos because, the reason why you can't use it for Shabbos is a Gzeira, because it looks like Kachim, and you're not allowed to burn Kachim on Shabbos, so you're not allowed to burn Truma on Shabbos also. But I want to say a shtickle drush in this respect. That the reason where you can say that by Shabbos is very dissimilar to Truma. How so? Because by Shabbos, the nature of Shabbos is that everything on Shabbos becomes Kadosh. That's what Shabbos is. On Shabbos, every Tainug is a mitzvah, and everything becomes Kedusha. It's like Mein Olam Haba. Right? It's not like. It is a Mein Olam Haba. And that's why, of course, Shabbos, there's an Isser Malacha, because the entire day becomes a day of Kedusha Mein Olam Haba. Chanukah is not like that. Chanukah is not where everything becomes Kadosh. There is no Isser Malacha on Chanukah, right? Chanukah is not like that. The Chanukah, and there's the only time when Chanukah even approaches an Isser Malacha is at the time of the Neros Chanukah, when there's a minhag not to do malacha. So therefore, Chanukah by Shabbos is completely dissimilar from Truma, because Shabbos is as if everything becomes Kodesh, like Chulin al Taras HaKodesh, where everything becomes Kodesh v'Tor. That's antithetical to Truma, which is a little bit of Kedusha, where there's a lot of Tuma. That's like Chanukah, and that Chanukah also, there's a little bit of Kedusha, when there's a lot of tumor, it surrounds it. It's the or mitoch hachoshech, the ma'atim, the rabbi miyad ma'atim, and that's why in this respect also there's a comparison, which is that by truma, also the true truma, as going back to the original comparison, that by truma we have the halacha that zora korev yuma, that the zori has truma is going to is Chayav Mitzvah, right? And nonetheless here, where it's Truma Tmeya, so we allow access to Yisrael, also he's allowed to use it as well. And that's similar to Chanukah also, where originally the halacha of a menorah was a Zora Korev Yumas. If a Zora goes in to do that avoda, he gets put to death, of course. Whereas now after the nace of the Chanukah, so then there's access to the menorah in the form of the Chanukiah to all of Bnei Yisrael. So that's in this respect we have the similarity between we have all these similarities between the truma which the Kohanim get, and here with Yisrael use, and the Chanukah, which the Kohanim were mezakeh, that or mitoch hachoshech ta'or b'am Yisrael, and is distinct because and in this respect one more thing, by Shabbos it's 7 days. The whole Shabbos is the 7th day, because it's mekadesh, or the teva. Within the teva, everything becomes kadosh on Shabbos. Whereas Chanukah is 8. It's lamala min ha-teva. In order to experience that unique Kedusha on Chanukah, you have to transcend this world. And that's the difference, of course, between Chanukah and Purim, but it's already late. I can't get into that tonight. Purim is much more like Shabbos in that respect. But by Chanukah, you have to transcend Teva, just like Truma is something which transcends the Chulin and is uplifted and goes to the Kohanim. So those are the similarities, and that's why you can use Shemen, show Truma, Tmeya, Shemen Sreifa to light Chanukah candles, but you can't use Shemen Sreifa in order to light Shabbos candles. Okay, let's just make the Hajj and the Kaddish. Maybe we can take out, we have some food in the meantime. And some. You can also come back and eat after Marv. There's not enough time to eat. Yeah. Hajjalach Maseches Trumas V'Achochalan. Dazalach Maseches Trumas V'Achochalan. Lo Nisnu Shem Noch Maseches Trumas Lo Tisnu Shnei Minot. Lo Ba'amadei Lo Ba'amadasi. Hajjalach Maseches Trumas V'Achochalan. Dazalach Maseches Trumas V'Achochalan. Lo Nisnu Shnei Minot Maseches Trumas Lo Tisnu Shnei Minot. Lo Ba'amadei Lo Ba'amadasi. Hajjalach Maseches Trumas V'Achochalan. Dazalach Maseches Trumas V'Achochalan. Lo Nisnu Shnei Minot Maseches Trumas Lo Tisnu Shnei Minot. Lo Ba'amadei Lo Ba'amadasi. Yirtzon Vanechon Eloheinu Ve'Evosei Sheteiter Eschomenu Seikulam Azeh Seiman Allah Ba Chanina Bar Papa Rami Bar Papa Nachman Bar Papa Achoy Bar Papa Amori Bar Papa Rafman Bar Papa Rochish Bar Papa Sucher Bar Papa Oder Bar Papa Dor Bar Papa Harev No Eloheinu Seveis Schod 50 Yosam Chod Beiso Nia Kulano Nachlu V'Tzatzayim V'Tzatzayim Chod Beiso Kulani Yodei Shmeim Dei Sor Secha Moiv Etchmenim Mitzasech Yom Ili Bitamim Chukech L'man Lo Evo Shalom Lo Shkach Pekudecha Kivam Chisoni Brucha Tonel Amdeini Chukecha Amen, 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 Selav Hoed. Modim Anachnu Vanechon Eloheinu Ve'Evosei Shesamtach Elokeinu B'Yoshrei Beis HaMedrash Lo Samtach Elokeinu B'Yoshrei Kronos Shana Mashkim V'Hem Mashkim Ono Mashkim V'Divei Tov V'Hem Mashkim V'Dvorim Telim Ono Melem V'Hem Melem Ono Melem Chal Misachar V'Hem Melem V'Hem Chal Misachar Ono Ratzim V'Hem Ratzim Ono Ratzim V'Chayim Abba V'Hem Ratzim V'Shachas Shneimar V'Toluhim Teredeim V'Shachas Ad She'idom Yirmima Lo Yechzu Mireim V'Ani Yiftach Bach Yirtzon L'Fanechon Eloheinu K'Shem Z'Azaltonu L'Zayim B'Seches Trumos Kein Tazreinu L'Aschim L'Sechtus L'Slayim Achim L'Slayimov Liomod Lami Lishmor V'Lasos L'Kayim Es Kol Divrei Samut L'Secha B'Yava Schus Kol Tanoim V'Amoroim Tamidei Chachamim Yamod Lanu U'Lezarenu Shelotomu Shatora Nipinu Mipi Zerenu V'Zera Zarenu Ad Olam Tiskayim Bonu Yisraelcho Tancho Schom Shofcho Tishmolecha והקיצוסו היא סיסיכך, כביר ירבו ימיך ויוסיפו שנות חיים, אורחים בימינה משמאל השכבות, הנויה זמויתן נוי ורך סמו והשלום.